Let's talk about one of the most important safety systems in your car. Seriously, it's something that works totally behind the scenes, a silent guardian, until that one split second you desperately need it. We're diving into electronic stability control, your car's secret co-pilot.
Okay, I want you to picture this. You're on a winding road. Maybe it's a little wet, right? You take a corner just a bit too hot. Or maybe an animal darts out and you have to swerve hard. And for that one heart-stopping moment, the car just isn't going where you're steering. That feeling, that terrifying disconnect, that's the moment you're losing control.
And that loss of control usually happens in one of two ways. On the left, you've got oversteer. This is when the back end of the car loses grip and slides out, basically turning you way more than you wanted. Then on the right, you have understeer. That's when the front wheels give up and the car just plows straight ahead, turning less than you want. Both of them are, well, absolutely terrifying.
It's a scary thought, isn't it? That critical moment when what you're doing with the steering wheel has absolutely no connection to where the car is actually going. In that tiny fraction of a second, you're just the passenger. And that's where the line between a close call and a very bad day gets drawn.
But what if? What if your car had an invisible co-pilot? Something that could feel that loss of control happening, maybe even before you could, and just step in to help? Well, here's the good news. It does. And it's called electronic stability control, or ESC.
Now, the key word here is active. Think about it. A seatbelt is passive. It just sits there until something bad happens. But ESC is an active system. It is constantly monitoring your car, and its entire job is to spot the very beginning of a skid and automatically, instantly intervene to keep you pointed in the right direction.
And listen, that is not an exaggeration. This quote right here gets to the heart of how profound this technology is. For drivers who've actually felt it kick in a moment where they thought it was all over, it literally feels like some miraculous force just reached out and put the car back on track.
Now you might be thinking, I've never heard of ESC. Well, that's because car makers just love to give it their own fancy names. Whether your car calls it ESP, VSC, Stability Track, Advanced Track, whatever it is, don't worry, it's all the same fundamental, life-saving tech doing its job under the hood.
So how does this magic actually work?
Well, it's not magic. It's just some seriously brilliant engineering. And to really get it, we need to look at the two key pieces of tech that ESC is built on top of.
So first up, you have anti-lock brakes, ABS. We've all heard of it. Its job is to keep your wheels from locking up when you slam on the brakes, so you can still steer around trouble. Then you have traction control, which does kind of the opposite. It stops your wheels from spinning when you hit the gas too hard on, say, ice or rain. ESC basically takes both of these systems, smashes them together, and then dials it up to 11.
Okay, so how does it build on that? The best way to wrap your head around how ESC works in the blink of an eye is to break it down into a super simple loop. It can sense, it can think, and it can act.
I know this diagram looks a little complicated, but the core idea is simple. You've got the control units, that's the brains of the operation, and they're connected to this hydraulic modulator. You can think of that as the heart, ready to pump very precise amounts of braking pressure to any single wheel on the car. This whole network is what lets the car do that sense, think, act loop in an instant.
So here's that logic, step by step. First, the system senses what the car is doing and what you, the driver, are trying to do. Second, its brain thinks about it by comparing those two things. And if it sees a dangerous difference between them, it immediately acts to fix it. Let's break down each one.
All right, first up, sense. For the car to know what's going on, it needs senses, right? Just like we do. But instead of eyes and ears, it's using this incredible network of high-tech electronic sensors. And these are the big four. You've got wheel speed sensors checking on each wheel, the steering angle sensor, which is crucial. It tells the system where you want to go, and then you get these two, the yaw rate and lateral acceleration sensors. Now, yaw sounds technical, but all it means is the car's rotation. Is it starting to spin? These last two sensors measure what the car is actually doing.
And this little box, this is one of the heroes of the whole system. It's often a sensor cluster that holds that yaw rate sensor we just talked about. They usually stick it near the car's center of gravity, and its entire job is just to feel if the car is starting to spin out of control.
Okay, so all of that data from the sensors comes flooding into the car's brain, the electronic control unit, or ECU. And this is where the think part of the loop happens, hundreds and hundreds of times every single second.
What it's doing really boils down to one simple, continuous question.
Is the car actually going where the driver is telling it to go? If the steering wheel is turned 20 degrees to the left, but that yaw sensor says the car is starting to spin, the ECU knows, uh-oh, we have a problem.
And when it detects that problem, it doesn't hesitate. It acts. The system uses the car's brakes and its engine as its muscles, making these tiny corrections way faster and with more precision than any human being possibly could.
And here's the genius part. Let's say you're in that oversteer slide where the rear is kicking out. The system might apply the brake to just the outside front wheel. That creates this little pivot point that helps tuck the car's nose back in line. If you're understeering and plowing straight, it might brake the inside rear wheel to help the car turn, all while maybe cutting engine power. It is unbelievably smart. So that's the how, but the why? Why does all this matter so much? Let's look at the results. Because this isn't just a clever piece of tech, it's genuinely one of the biggest safety breakthroughs in the history of the automobile.
The numbers are just staggering. Studies by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found that ESC cuts the risk of a fatal crash by a third, a full 33%. And for single vehicle crashes, the ones where a driver just loses control and goes off the road, it cuts the risk by nearly half. We are talking about thousands upon thousands of lives saved every single year because of this.
And you can see how important it is just by looking at its history. It started out in 1995 as a fancy option on a high-end Mercedes. But it was so effective, so undeniably good at saving lives, that by 2012, it was made mandatory on every single new passenger car sold in the US. It went from a luxury to a necessity.
So let's just quickly recap the big points. ESC is an active system that spots and stops skids a lot of the time before you even know you're in trouble. It's built on the shoulders of ABS and traction control using that sense, think, act loop, and most importantly, the data doesn't lie. It is an absolute proven lifesaver.
Electronic stability control was really a foundational step in teaching our cars how to sense the world around them and react to it. It really is an invisible co-pilot. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. As these systems get even smarter and cars become more autonomous, what other dangers will they learn to see and react to next?